Hello everybody and welcome to the MerwinMusic YouTube channel, where today we're going to build this studio equipment rack. In the last video I built a quick and easy equipment rack for the sound booth. In this video I'm going to build a similar rack, just a little nicer looking. For this project I picked up a pine project panel, which is 3/4 of an inch thick and 16 inches wide by 96 inches long. I want the rack to be 16 inches deep, just like the piece of wood, so all I have to do is cross-cut the panel to the right length for my top and bottom and two side pieces. I'm using 14 unit rails, which are 24.5 inches long, so my side pieces are going to be 24.5 inches plus a 1/16 for some wiggle room. The standard spacing for rack mount equipment is 19 inches, but we also want to add that 1/16 extra for some wiggle room. So the top and bottom panel need to be 19 inches, plus the thickness of the sides, plus a 1/16 to give a length of 20 and 9/16 inches. The panel is too long to cut on the table saw, so first I set it up across the saw and workbench and made sure to clamp the ends down, so when I cut it in half with a circular saw, it won't all come crashing down. You could make all of the cuts this way with the circular saw, but I trimmed down the pieces to their final size on the table saw. The 14 unit rails and 8-foot board work out pretty well since this is all of the leftover pieces. Next, I clamped up the pieces for how the box would be assembled and made some marks about every 3 inches for where I was going to put some dowels. It isn't crucial where the dowels are, you just want the holes in both pieces to be lined up with each other. Then I marked all the panels so I wouldn't mix them up and could put them all back together the same way, and then I started drilling the holes. I used this Rockler dowel jig that helps you drill holes for 3/8 inch dowels into 3/4 inch material. I made sure to set the depth stop on the bit so half the dowel would go into each piece and I wouldn't drill all the way through the top or bottom panel. You can see when they are all done, the rack will come together like this. Next I planned out how the glue up was going to go and assembled all the pieces, making sure the whole thing was clamped up tight and square. Then once the glue had dried, I took off the clamps and rounded over the edges of the box with the router. I then could sand the entire box with 150 and 220 grit sandpaper. Once the sanding was done, I wiped the dust off the box with mineral spirits and then brushed on a coat of pre-stain conditioner. This makes the stain go on more evenly and helps you get a nicer finish with less streaks. I then used this early American colored stain and followed the instructions on the can, which said to wipe on against the grain and then wipe it off with the grain. At this point, I laid out the position for some 4-inch hairpin legs I picked up from eBay, which was 1 inch from the outside edge of the box. Then I drilled the holes for the legs and then put a screw in the corners so that I could hold the box up in the air while I coated it with polyurethane. After the first coat, I sanded with 320 grit sandpaper, and then after the second coat, I used some 4/0 steel wool. Once the polyurethane was dry, I could attach the legs with some number 8 5/8 inch screws. I used those same screws as the legs to attach the rails, and I used a scrap of wood to set the rails about 1/4 of an inch back from the front of the rack. Once that was all done, all I had to do was load it up. I like to lay racks on their backs when I'm filling them up. That way you can just place all of the equipment in and it stays in place. And then you can rearrange till you like the setup and just put in all of your screws at once to hold everything down. I'm super happy with the way this came out. It looks great, it works great, and it wasn't that difficult to build. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and are inspired to build your own rack. If so, let me know by hitting that thumbs up. Otherwise, subscribe to not miss out on any new videos coming out in the future. But most of all, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Hello everybody and welcome to the MerwinMusic YouTube channel, where today we're going to build this studio rack. Today we're going to build this audio equipment rack. Studio rack for audio equipment. Audio rack for studio equipment. Rack mount box to hold stuff.